If you own all 5 of these volumes, you have 250 of Spurgeon's finest sermons, but you do not have the full collection, the 63 volumes of 3,563 sermons. Do not be confused. Hey guys, Joel here, back to the Word, and in this video, we're going to go through every Spurgeon sermon collection in existence, every sermon by Spurgeon, and where to get them all. This is a video I've wanted to do for a while, finally sharing it with you guys. This video is really part 2. I already did a video that came out on my channel on the publication history of Spurgeon's sermons from 1855 until now, and so you can go check out that video for the history. This one is going to focus on the published sets or collections of Spurgeon sermons that have been done. And these are the ones that I know about after extensive research. I may have missed some. So if you know about something I missed, or you have something you want to add or contribute or give me an extra piece of information I was lacking, please comment below this video the title, the publisher, the year, and what the set contains in the comments. And after a while, who knows, maybe I'll do a part 2 where I share about some of the sets that I missed in this video. For the contents of this video, I'm going to hop through the major sections you see right here on my notes on the side. We're going to talk about the video scope, every Spurgeon sermon that exists, and then how to get them all. Some digital options, some print collections that exist today. And I've broken those into categories. So most popular, Pilgrim Publications Set, the Hendrickson Green Set, then also the Hendrickson Spurgeon's Sermons Notes book, and then also other publishers and collections, Baker, Kregel, Moody, Zondervan, Banner of Truth, the Lost Sermons of Spurgeon, 1851 to 1854, from B&H, the Lost Sermons, then print projects in process today. As I'm filming this, the spring of 2025, we're going to go through a Pilgrim's Coffer Theologies project, as well as Reformation Heritage Books project of republishing all 63 volumes of Spurgeon's sermons. And then we're going to end the video with some calls for comments and other Spurgeon content that's coming out on my channel as well. So the last thing I'll say before we get into the content is that I am going to put up the notes that are going to be scrolling on the side through most of this video on my blog, which I'll make updates to. So if you have insights, things that I missed, add them below this video, comment, and I will update the blog every so often when I get the chance to do so. I'll also put up some occasional photos of the different sets that I'm talking about, so you see examples of what those look like right there where my notes are showing up as well. So let's hop into video scope. I just want you to know, as I'm hopping into this video, I am sticking to just Spurgeon's sermon collections for this video. Spurgeon's published lots of stuff, lots of written works. I'm sticking to the sermons, how his sermons have been packaged in different sets and collections throughout the year. Arnold Dallimore, in his biography of Spurgeon on page 249, says the following about Spurgeon's writings before providing his own brief annotated bibliography of Spurgeon's recently published works. So if you want a scope of how much Spurgeon wrote during his lifetime, here's a little window into that. In a Baptist bibliography edited by Edward C. Starr and published by the American Baptist Historical Society, Rochester, New York, the section on C.H. Spurgeon, that's Charles Haddon Spurgeon, covers 64 pages and lists 1,135 items. That's how much he published and wrote during his lifetime. Spurgeon wrote some 140 works. Most of these are no longer in publication and are difficult to obtain in the second-hand market. Some, however, have more recently been produced, the chief of which are, and then Dallimore lists a brief bibliography of some of Spurgeon's most important and most published works. So you can check that out if you're curious what he included on that list. Moving into every Spurgeon sermon that exists. If you want to own every Spurgeon sermon that he published or wrote because he died before we could record audio, you're looking for two sets primarily. You're looking for the 63-volume collection of Spurgeon sermons that were published that contain 3,563 sermons. They were published by Passmore and Alabaster, Spurgeon's official publisher in London, in the United Kingdom during his lifetime. Those editions were actually republished by Pilgrim Publications and are currently in process of being published again by some other people I'll talk about later in this video. Also, the second set you're looking to get is the Lost Sermons of C.H. Spurgeon, which was published by Broadman and Holman, B&H, in 7 volumes. So why is it the case that you're looking for these two sets of sermons? So, in the United Kingdom, 1855 to 1917, Spurgeon's official publisher of his sermon was Passmore and Alabaster. They published 63 volumes of his sermons, one at the end of each year, and the final total at the end was 3,563 sermons over 3,241 consecutive weeks during Spurgeon's lifetime while he was preaching at the New Park Street Chapel and then the Metropolitan Tabernacle Chapel / pulpit, and that as well. In America, during the same time, if you're looking for 63 volumes, most recently published in 1969, Bob L. Ross, founder of Pilgrim Publications in Pasadena, Texas, undertook a massive publishing project of reprinting the complete 63 volumes of sermons, unabridged and unedited, from the original Passmore and Alabaster editions, a project he completed in 1980 and kept in print until the early 2000s. So 63 volumes by Passmore and Alabaster, exact reprints of those done by Pilgrim Publications in 1969. The Lost Sermons from 2017 to 2022 were published by B&H in 7 volumes. They are his earliest outlines and sermons between 1851 and 1854. So in 1857, Charles Spurgeon promised his readers that he would publish his earliest sermons. For almost 160 years, this promise went unfulfilled. But in these lost sermon published volumes by B&H, these rediscovered sermons can be finally read, studied, and enjoyed by the millions around the world who admire Spurgeon's spiritual insights and literary grace through his preaching. And so Spurgeon, for the first couple years of his pastoral ministry, did not publish his sermons. And so a couple years, 2 years, so started in 1855 with Passmore and Alabaster. 1857 makes this promise that he'll go back and publish those earliest sermons. He never did so. Promise is fulfilled between 2017 and 2022 by B&H. And so that adds about 10% to Spurgeon's sermon library. And so you need both the 63 volumes and the lost sermons to get as much as we have of Spurgeon's published sermons. So, and I'll talk more about both of those sets a little longer in this video, but that's the history overview. If you want more about that history, check out my publication history video of Spurgeon's sermons. So, what collections of Spurgeon's sermons exist today, and how can you get every Spurgeon sermon? So let's talk about getting them all. First up, digital versions. So if you want to get the digital versions, maybe you don't care as much about getting physical print copies. What are some of the options to get all of Spurgeon's sermons that have been published? So you're looking for those two sets again, the 63 volumes and the Lost Spurgeon, or Sermons of Spurgeon. And so let's talk through the first one, Charles Spurgeon Complete Sermon Selection, all 63 volumes, 1855 to 1917. I have these digitally through Logos. And Logos is really great Bible study software. And so depending on where you are and you're getting into that digital platform, there may be more cost associated with it. But here's the collection overview, because you can go get and buy in your digital print library all 63 volumes. This is the most complete collection of Charles Spurgeon sermons available in print or digitally. In this collection, there are over 3,550 sermons from one of the most gifted speakers and blessed Christian leaders of our era. This product is a complete digital edition of the Pilgrim Publications print edition, chronologically compiled from volume 1 to 63. And so costs may vary a little bit here for Logos. It usually runs around $500, but I would tell you, and I'll put up an image of me doing this, is when you bring it up, if you scroll down, you can see other Logos libraries or collections those works are a part of. And so when I bought these about a year or so ago, I bought a legacy library, a Baptist denominational like gold legacy library from 3 or 4 editions previously, like Logos 9 or 8. And I got the digital copies of all 63 volumes and the lost sermons in one purchase that was less than $500. So look to see if they're bundled with something else that you want, because you can get a discount that way. But if you buy them straight out, they usually run around $500 to add them to your print library in Logos. Also, there's free PDFs up online. Just one site that I wanted to highlight here was spurgeongems.org. You can go search by volume, you can go search by scripture, you can go search by the sermon title, and you can go download free PDFs of Spurgeon sermons there. And I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Are there other places you know to get Spurgeon's 63 volumes somewhere and the sermons from them digitally? Share in the comments. Would love to learn with you guys. The Lost Sermons of C.H. Spurgeon, 7 volumes from B&H. His earliest sermons from 1851 to 1854, or at least what we have of them. Here's the Logos description of them, or the overview of this collection. In 1857, Charles Spurgeon, the most popular preacher in the Victorian world, promised his readers that he would publish his earliest sermons. For almost 160 years, these sermons have been lost to history. If you want more about that, check out my other video on the publication history of Spurgeon's sermons, and you'll understand why they got lost and why he had to start officially publishing his sermons. In 2017, B&H Academic began releasing a multi-volume set that includes full-color face mails. They're so beautiful. Transcriptions, contextual and biographical introductions, and editorial annotations written for scholars, pastors, and students alike. The Lost Sermons of C.H. Spurgeon will add approximately 10% more material to Spurgeon's body of literature. If you want to know why B&H, why Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, why his whole collection's in Missouri, check out my publication history video. But if you want this collection in Logos, it's going to run you between $209 to really $300 or so dollars. Same thing as the previous set I talked about. Scroll down the set, see if it's included in some other things that you would think about getting. The more it's packaged together within Logos, usually the cheaper it is. You can also buy it from B&H Academic, their website, and ebook or physical copies. And if you know some other places to get these editions, let us know in the comments below as well. So moving into our next section, print collections that exist today. So you want to get your hands on physical copies. I just covered the digital options. What options are out there for copies of Spurgeon's sermons? And here some of them are. So 1855 to the 1950s. I'm going to leave those volumes out of this video. While you can get volumes before the 1950s, and they do exist, I'm skipping over them in this video because they really are collector's items and they're really hard to find or buy. So check my Spurgeon History of Publication sermon video if you want to know more about the sets that exist from that era. So I want to hop into most popular. So I want to highlight 2 sets, most popular. If you talk about getting Spurgeon sermons today, these are the 2 sets I get asked about the most. And so you might have a family member who has these on the shelf. You might go into a used bookstore. What are the 2 or so sets that you're most likely to run into? And then later in this video, I will share more details about ongoing publication projects of the 63 sermon Spurgeon volumes. So first up, one of the most popular ones you're going to see on the shelves of loved ones, family members, or in your bookstore is the 1969 Pilgrim Publication volumes. All 63 volumes got published with a total sermon collection of 3,563. So I'm going to put up some photos so you can see some of those. These were published between 1969 and 1980, and the 63 volume set by Pilgrim Publications with colorful dust jackets are unabridged and unedited reprints of the original Passmore and Alabaster volumes published from 1855 to 1917. I do need to make a note here about availability. So in 2017, Pilgrim Publications was no longer reprinting various volumes, and it had already been near impossible to order or find a full set of Spurgeon's sermons published by Pilgrim for quite a while. In 2020, its founder, Bob L. Ross, died, and he made no plans for Pilgrim Publications to continue its work after his passing. You can still pick up various volumes as they pop up for sale online, and some pastors have completed sets from collecting them in the 80s or 90s or receiving them from a family member. So getting the full set is not impossible. So hear me, it's not impossible, but it will be expensive, take patience, and is not for the faint of heart. So let me just say, it's not impossible to get all 63 volumes, but it's really difficult, which is why a little bit later in this video, I'm going to talk about why some are doing current publication projects to bring all 63 volumes back into print, and so you can get all of them physically, way easier than hunting down all of the Pilgrim Publications volumes. The next most popular set that I get asked about all the time is the 2011 Hendrickson Green Set in 5 books, which are 10 volumes, and the sermons included in that set is 250 selected sermons from Spurgeon. So this set to date, I get the most questions on my Instagram account, on my YouTube account, as I'm publishing one of the current projects and about it, which you'll hear about later in this video from Reformation Heritage Books. People are always like, hey, I have these 5 Hendrickson Green editions. How do these differ from those? So what is in the Hendrickson copies? So Hendrickson published these in May of 2011. They retail for around $200, but I have seen them on sale for as low as $50 on Christian Book, brand new. What's the description is, this is an economically friendly edition of over 250 of Spurgeon's finest sermons. So there's the point right there. If you own all 5 of these volumes, you have 250 of Spurgeon's finest sermons, but you do not have the full collection, the 63 volumes of 3,563 sermons. Do not be confused. Moving on. Bound in a set of 5 handsome, durable hardbacks for years of reading, this collection also includes a subject index and a biblical text index for easy reference. Charles Spurgeon is known as the Prince of Preachers, and now you can add his biblically based, gospel-centered sermons to your library at a spectacular price. So these are sold as a 5-book set, but each book contains 2 volumes put together. So there are 10 total volumes. So each book contains 2 volumes. For example, book 1 consists of volumes 1 and 2. Book 2 consists of volumes 3 and 4. And then it goes on from there. Before we leave this most popular section of the video, I want to highlight another collection that's not just Spurgeon sermons, but something similar that's really popular that lots of people have as well, which is in 1997, Hendrickson published in 1 volume Spurgeon's Sermon Notes. So it contains notes on over 250 sermons, and it includes notes for those sermons, some commentaries, and some illustrations, and that 1 volume is 736 pages. So in 1884, that volume, or that work that's put together there by Hendrickson was first published. So notice that's during Spurgeon's lifetime. Then it was published in 1981 in 4 volumes by Baker Bookhouse. And then in 1997, it was published in 1 volume by Hendrickson, and it retails for around $40, $39 or so, but you can get it cheaper in various different places. So what's the description of this collection is that Spurgeon's Sermon Notes is a classic which provides fresh inspiration and understanding for preachers, study group leaders, or any heart that craves a devotional overview of the greatest book of all time penned by one of its greatest students. So what does this set feature, this bound volume? 264 sermon outlines complete with illustrations and commentary. It's based on selected texts from almost every book of the Bible, and it's actually organized in biblical sequence. So the sermons, the notes are put together from Genesis through Revelation. It's also a newly typeset version with punctuation modernized for easy reading, obviously from that 81 Baker edition, most likely. So I just want you to know, more than likely you have a family member, a friend, you can walk into the used bookstore and find that pretty easily. And so I wanted to mention it as well as the other 2 sets for most popular ones that I get asked about, or if you walk into a used bookstore, you will find on the shelves. I also want to go over in this video some other publishers and collections. So moving on from some of the most popular ones that you'll find, see, or hear about to just other collections that have existed over time and you might run into. And I want to start by talking about the 1979 Baker, A Treasury of Spurgeon on the Life and Work of Our Lord collection. This is 6 volumes, 367 sermons, and more than 4,000 pages. So it was reprinted in 1979 by Baker Bookhouse Company. Original retail was $13.95 per volume, and the full set was $79.50. Wow. Way to, what a price for these treasures from Spurgeon. So here is a set description from the inside dust cover. This 6-volume set with more than 4,000 pages focuses solely on the life and work of Christ. Included are 367 sermons by the Prince of Expositors. Unsurpassed for their evangelical thrust, these homiletical gems point men and women to the redemptive work of Christ. And so if you own this set, there are 6 volumes. Volume 1 is on sermons that are collected together on Christ in the Old Testament. So there's 60 sermons in that volume. Volume 2, the Messiah, 61 sermons. Volume 3, the parables of our Lord, 65 sermons. Volume 4, the miracles of our Lord, 55 sermons. Volume 5, The Miracles of Our Lord 2, 53 sermons. And Volume 6, The Passion and Death of Our Lord, 63 sermons. Moving on, other Baker Spurgeon sermon projects that I know about from my research is that in 1983, Spurgeon sermon volumes were published by Baker. They did 10 volumes in 10 hardback green books. I'll put up some photos. If you could help me, I've seen these were published anywhere from 1983 to 1987. So if you have clarity on when they were exactly started to be published, let me know in the comments. They were published by Baker Bookhouse. And if you have even the table of contents from the first volume, if you know what that is, post it in the description below. I'd be interested. I'm curious, and I'm guessing maybe that the 10 volumes by Baker that were published in 1983 were later put together into 5 hardback editions, which I'll talk about here in a second. And I'm suspicious that then those editions from 96 got picked up and published by Hendrickson in 2011. That's my suspicion. So if you can confirm that in YouTube land in the comments, let me know. But their 1983 10-volume hardback edition got put into 5 volumes in 1996, Spurgeon sermon volumes. I'll put up some photos. The 10 volumes were put into 5 hardback green books and published by Baker Bookhouse. Also, around that, just before that, 1970s through the 80s, Baker did these collections, 12 sermons on various topics from Spurgeon. And so they pulled together a different collection, and each small book contained 12 sermons on a selected topic or for a certain particular audience, for preachers, for those sorts of things. Moving along, Kregel Spurgeon Sermon Projects. I know they had the rights to publish some of Spurgeon's sermons. I have some volumes. I'll show some pictures as I'm talking about this. But in 1995, they also did some 12 sermons on series of books from Spurgeon's sermons. So each small book contained 12 sermons on a selected topic as well. And together they are part of the Kregel C.H. Spurgeon Sermon series that publisher did as well. I put up here Moody Publishers in Jeffrey Chang's Introduction to the Revival Year set of Spurgeon sermons from Reformation Heritage Books. He makes a mention that Moody is one of the publishers that at a certain period in the 1900s did publish some of Spurgeon's sermons. I did tons of research. I could not find any. So if you know of some, comment them below on this video and I will add them to my blog and make some notes and talk about the sets that Moody published. If you know about them, let me know about them. But I could not find personally any record of it on the internet. Moving on to Zondervan Spurgeon Sermon Projects. In the 1960s, Spurgeon Sermons Memorial Library was published by Zondervan in 20 volumes, equaling more than 8,000 pages, and I don't have a definitive sermon number to share with you guys. So if you know how many sermons were in the Memorial Library, let me know in the comments. I know that each volume retailed for $2.95, and I'll show some volumes or some pictures of these volumes as I'm given this description. Here's the set description from the inside dust cover. This set contains sermons on 1,894 different themes. It is completely indexed. Included in this set are 51 sermons on Bible characters, 12 sermons on the blood of Christ, 36 sermons on death, 20 sermons on the death of Christ, 17 sermons on heaven, 4 sermons on hell, 37 sermons on prayer, 15 sermons on the resurrection, 57 sermons on sin, 41 sermons on soul winning, and sermons on many other helpful subjects. And so I have a link there if you want to go check out some more images of this collection. I've been putting up some photos as well for this Memorial Library 20-volume collection published by Zondervan in the 1960s. Also in the 1960s by Zondervan, the new library of Spurgeon sermons in 20 handsome volumes was also published. And so their original retail per volume was $2.95 per volume and $59 for the whole set. I've put up a few photos there. I'm interested to know, for those who might be able to help me out, the relationship between these, because you have two 20-volume sets, but obviously one is the Memorial Library and then one is the new library, and they seem to have different thematic collections based on what I can see, but would love more insights in the comments. Other random collections of Spurgeon sermons from Zondervan around this period of time. 1960s, the New Park Street Pulpit, they actually published the first 6 volumes of the Alabaster and Passmore editions. And their typesetting was actually from the Passmore and Alabaster editions. I found some images from Amazon that I'm putting up for you guys right now on what those looked like. And I also found that there was a red 12-volume set organized by themes that was also published at a certain time by Zondervan, and it was put together by Reverend Dr. Charles Cook, and so I'll put a photo up of that set as well, although I know very little about that set. Moving into what was Banner of Truth Publishing, what have they published of Spurgeon's sermon projects and collections. Their first really foray into publishing parts of or sermons from Spurgeon was in 1969, based on the research I did, when they published sermons from his revival year of 1859. So they published 5, I believe, sermons from his time at the Surrey Gardens Music Hall in 1859. And so that volume of sermons is totaled out at 96 pages, and I believe it's just 5 sermons in that book, and so I put the cover up there so you could see it. In the 1990s, they did yellow dust cover sermon collection volumes. So they were black hardback with yellow, bright yellow dust cover. I'm putting up some images for you guys. But Banner of Truth did not publish all 63 volumes. So here's an example description from volume 38 about how they were publishing it and how they were writing about it. It says, leading these 52 sermons, exactly half from the Old Testament, are the last which C.H. Spurgeon personally prepared for the press before his death at the age of 57 on January 31st, 1892. From the best unpublished sermons of the closing years of Spurgeon's life, J.W. Harold, his faithful assistant, put the rest of this volume of Metropolitan Tabernacle together. So 2 things. 1, they didn't do all 63 volumes, but 2, I read that description so that you could see, if you haven't watched my sermon publication video, why sermon publication of Spurgeon's sermons continued even for about 10 or so years after his death, is because there were sermons that were unpublished, that didn't get published weekly, that they went back and published and put together into yearly volumes. And so you see here how they were putting those volumes together even after Spurgeon's death, because he died in 1892, and they continued to publish his sermons until 1917. But there's a little bit, I've showed you some photos of the yellow dust cover editions. Some people take the Pilgrim Publications editions and the yellow editions from Banner of Truth, and you can put them together to sometimes make a complete 63-volume set. Some other things Banner of Truth has done with Spurgeon's sermon content. In 2005, they published this 3-volume set known as Majesty in Misery. It contains 63 sermons, 982 pages, and they are Spurgeon's sermons on the passion and death of our Lord Jesus Christ. So Volume 1 is Dark Gethsemane, has 19 sermons. Volume 2, Judgment Hall, has 19 sermons. And Volume 3, Calvary's Mournful Mountain, has 25 sermons. In 2023, they published Good Tidings of Great Joy, Christ's Incarnation, the Foundation of Christianity. So why did I put a Christmas book from Spurgeon in this video? Here's why. Because it's 176 pages, and it's brought together a combination of sermon snippets from Charles Spurgeon. This work contains 38 meditations on Christ's incarnation from the pen of Charles Spurgeon. So they are actually sermon snippets put together and smoothed out slightly for the modern reader. So this work as a whole is an ideal companion in the approach to the Christmas season, but can be used throughout the year as well. And so Banner of Truth went into some of the text around Christmas, around Christ's incarnation, and they took sections of Spurgeon's sermons and put them together. I'll have a video up on my channel in the near future where I do a review of that book and actually tell you which sermons they pulled from for each of them as well. Moving into the Lost Sermons, 1851 to 1854. So these were published by B&H, The Lost Sermons of C.H. Spurgeon, in 7 volumes from 2017 to 2022. They are his earliest outlines and sermons between 1851 and 1854. So just a brief history reminder for those who might not have watched my full publication history of Spurgeon sermons video. In 1851, Spurgeon preached his first sermon at Taversam. He actually was kind of tricked into doing so. And within that same year, he became the pastor at Waterbeach Chapel, a Baptist church in Cambridge. In 1854, at 19, he was called to pastor at the historic New Park Street Chapel in London. The congregation was approximately 200 members at the time of Spurgeon's arrival and would experience massive growth over the coming years. In 1855, publication of Spurgeon's sermons officially begins with his official publisher, Passmore and Alabaster. So he's been preaching from 1851 until 1854 and not publishing those sermons. And he kept them in notebooks and notes that he had, and he promised to publish them. So you can watch my history video if you want more about that project. But in 1857, so 2 years after he started officially publishing his sermons weekly, Charles Spurgeon, the most popular preacher in the Victorian world, promised his readers that he would publish his earliest sermons. For almost 160 years, these sermons were lost to history. In these volumes from B&H, The Lost Sermons of Spurgeon, these rediscovered sermons can finally be read, studied, and enjoyed by millions around the world who admire Spurgeon's spiritual insights and literary grace. A little bit more about the set, as I'm showing some pictures here of it as well. This is a set I own and I'm very thankful to have. This multi-volume set includes full color facsimiles of Spurgeon's original handwriting, transcriptions of his outlines and sermons, biographical introductions, and editorial commentary that further illuminate Spurgeon's work. Taken together, the Lost Sermons of C.H. Spurgeon will add approximately 10% more material to Spurgeon's total body of literature, making it a must-have for pastors and scholars as well as the multitude of Spurgeon enthusiasts around the world. So I have their series page from B&H if you want to see all these on their website and the collection. Also, there have the link to the full collector edition set, as also the standard edition, which is a cloth overboard with dust cover set as well, which is the one that I own. It's really cool that you think about why the sets have the different colors associated with them, and it's because for each of those years, those 7, they have 7 notebooks from Spurgeon, and so they've tried to pick up the color and some tones for the series that they published from those original notebooks of Spurgeon's sermons. And this is a really well done set that you need to check out. So B&H, some other Spurgeon sermon projects I want to mention real quick is that in 2024, they released 2 books that selected 6 sermons each. And so this is a sermon collection with introductions by Dr. Jason K. Allen, who's the president of Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, which is where the Spurgeon Library is, and most of his collection of library and works around Spurgeon. It is the center of Spurgeon scholarship today. And so they released 2 books in 2024, 2 sermon kind of themed collection books. So The Great Commission, a sermon collection, so 6 sermons on the Great Commission. And then also Preaching, a sermon collection, so 6 sermons on preaching. I don't know if they're going to continue it, but that's one other thing B&H has done recently around Spurgeon's sermons. Moving on to print projects in process today. As I'm filming this in the spring of 2025, I'm going to highlight 2 projects. Both are currently working to bring back into print and availability all 63 volumes of Spurgeon's sermons. And so, as we know, Pilgrim Publications was the one most recently to do this in the United States. You can't get those volumes anymore. They're really hard to come by. They're not currently in print. So 2 kind of printers / people or print projects are in process right now to bring back all 63 volumes. And they're a little bit different. So I'm going to cover both here. The first one I'm going to highlight is being done by a Pilgrim's Coffer Theology. Once finished, it will be all 63 volumes of Spurgeon's sermons, totaling 3,563 sermons. This project was announced in November of 2023. A Pilgrim's Coffer's Theology is run by Jared from Asheboro, North Carolina, was started by him. I'm sure he's not doing this publishing venture all by himself, but he's the one leading the charge on this. And he's working on republishing and fully retypesetting Spurgeon's sermon volume, starting with the New Park Street Pulpit Volume 1 in 1850. And so that's what makes this set a bit more unique, is he is retypesetting all 63 volumes as they move through this series. So I have his website right there. I'll put some images up of these volumes. Here's a sample of Volume 1's description to talk about what's unique about this publishing venture of Spurgeon's sermons. So for the first time ever, we are fully retypesetting Spurgeon pulpit sermon volumes, New Park Street pulpit plus Metropolitan Tabernacle pulpit, beginning with the New Park Street Volume 1, 1855. Compared to the first editions last printed over 100 years ago, these volumes have larger, crisper font for easier reading experience, corrected errors found in original editions. So those are spelling errors, punctuation errors, very similar things that Spurgeon even admitted were in his sermons because of how quickly he was publishing them. Language and spelling not edited or modernized. So they are correcting the errors in spelling and things, but they are not correcting language or they're not moving spelling from a British, UK, London to an English American spelling. And also styling is true to original volumes retained throughout. And so you already saw some of the images I popped up, how they are doing that. Volume 1 contains sermon numbers 1 through 53, identical to the original first edition, plus new appendix material. As I'm filming this video, spring of 2025, they have Volume 1 and Volume 2 out, and they just put up pre-orders for Volume 3 with a promise to increase the speed at which they're publishing. And so I'm really excited about this series and what they're going to bring to Spurgeon publication by retypesetting and this new appendix material and this beautifully done volumes. The other ongoing sermon publication project of Spurgeon sermons right now, as I'm filming this in the spring of 2025, is from Reformation Heritage Books. And so they are going to and are planning to release all and bring back into print all 63 volumes of Spurgeon's sermons, 3,563 sermons. Their project was announced in May of 2024. And so here's some details about this project is that Reformation Heritage Books, in cooperation with the Spurgeon Library of Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, announced their first set of Spurgeon sermon volumes being released in the fall of 2024 and their plans to put back into print all 63 volumes of Spurgeon sermons over the next few years. And as you already saw there in the description, they're releasing them as different themed sets. So the first one was the revival years, the second one is expanding ministry, and they'll go on releasing different sets of volumes throughout the future. Picking this up, it says, these volumes are a facemeal, an exact copy or reproduction of the Pilgrim Publications editions of Spurgeon sermons from 1855 to 1917 by Passmore and Alabaster. So they're doing exact print reproductions, facemeals of Pilgrim Publications, which was the highest resolution, best quality printings of the original Passmore and Alabaster volumes. So here's the series description. On a Sunday evening in January 1851, 16-year-old Charles Spurgeon preached his very first sermon in a thatched roof cottage in Taversham, a small village outside of Cambridge. Over the next 40 years, the man we now know as the Prince of Preachers would preach thousands of powerful, Christ-exalting sermons to the people of London. This collection presents Spurgeon's sermons in 63 volumes, compiled each year between 1855 and 1891 from his ministry at the New Park Street Chapel and then the Metropolitan Tabernacle. In 63 volumes, you will be reminded of the glory of God, Christ, and the gospel through brilliant expositions filled with Spurgeon's timeless illustrations and memorable wordplay. And so there's the website right there for Reformation Heritage Books. So they announced this the spring, May of 2024. The first collection came out in September of 2024. The revival years, so I'll put some photos up because I have this collection. The New Park Street Pulpit, 1855 to 1860. It included volumes 1 through 6, plus an index of all 63 volumes. So there's the set description if you want to pause and read that. It's a beautiful set. I'm really thankful for what Reformation Heritage Books is doing with this set, and I found actually the introduction material in volume 1 that they added to be really helpful. They talk about what was going on in Spurgeon's life and ministry throughout the whole set's duration. So you get 1 through 6, and they talk about what was going on in his life and ministry and the church during those 6 years of ministry. And so I'm sure they're going to continue that for future set collections. As I'm filming this, the second set, Expanding Ministry, is due out the middle of March 2025. I'll release an unboxing video for it as soon as it arrives here at my office. It's going to cover the Metropolitan Tabernacle Pulpit volumes 7 through 22 and also include an index as well. And there's a set description if you want to pause and read that. And obviously they're going to release more sets, Lord willing, in the future to cover volumes 23 through 63. So, if you have comments, insights, things you would like to share with me about these topics, things that I missed, things that you know, leave those in the comments below of this video. These are obviously the ones that I know about, that I personally have run into or through extensive research was able to find. I'll put the notes that have been going on the side on my blog, and so I'll endeavor, as you guys teach me in the comments, to actually make sure some of those insights and things get onto the blog. And so the blog for a while is going to be the most updated resource on those things. If I misquoted a year when something was published, a price, if someone sends me a set description that I did not have or tells me how many sermons were in a set that I was not able to provide for you guys in this video, I'll put it on the blog first. And if I get enough of that stuff, I'll do a part 2 of this video. So obviously, if you know more, I would love to hear in the comments about a set I missed. Comment the title, the publisher, the year, and what the set contains, like how many sermons. And if you can include the table of contents, that actually helps me compare with whether it was a reprint of a previous collection or if it was a totally different collection as well, if you include the first couple sermons that are in the table of contents for just one of the volumes that you're talking about. I've put together a playlist on my channel of other Spurgeon related videos, including lots of them on Spurgeon sermons. So every time I get a new set from RHB, I'm hoping to do an unboxing video as well as kind of a review of what was going on during that time in Spurgeon's life. So you can be excited about that. Subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified about those when new videos come out. But I'm collecting them all in a playlist, so that's linked in the description below. Also, cue the card at the top. So you're going to go check that playlist out right now. You can see how many videos I've done on Spurgeon's sermons and Spurgeon-related videos and topics. And as I've mentioned it multiple times, I did the publication video or the publication history of Spurgeon's sermon video. So cue the card in the top if you want to go check that out to just get a year-by-year thing of what was the developments of the publication of Spurgeon's sermons. So with that, until next time, continue to read, treasure, follow the word. God bless, and I'll see you guys soon.